It's my privilege to invite Vinay Kumar Jain Garu, and he is an pursuing PhD research scholar. He's a research scholar from Vignan University, Guntur, and he completed his BTech in civil engineering from Bridge IC, which is affiliated to JNTU Hyderabad, and he completed his MTech from CMR SET Autonomous Campus in Hyderabad, Telangana, and he is worked as assistant professor in Department of Civil Engineering in Vignan Institute of Technology and Aeronautical Engineering in Telangana for 4 years. He is a lifetime member of Indian Concrete Institute and ISCMS, Indian Society for Construction Materials and Structures. He had 11 NPTEL chapter courses certified and FDPs attended 4, and he guided 4, and he guided UG projects 11, that is the BTech projects, and PG projects handled number 2. He has 7 national and international conferences attended and got published 8 international journals from 4 Scopus and 4 UGC indexed journals. His area of interest is on material science, geopolymer motor concrete, soil stabilization, construction and demolition, C&D waste, supplementary cementitious materials used in construction. So it is my privilege to invite uh, Vinay Kumar Jain Garu to start the lecture. Sir, good evening, sir. Vinay, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the session, sir.
So it's my privilege to deliver a lecture in Sri Chaitanya College of Engineering on lecture series on role of cement and supplementary cementitious material in production of environmental friendly concrete way towards sustainability. So my topic of today's presentation is supplementary cementitious materials and types of concrete. So the overview of my presentations is basics and a level of material, level of information, supplementary cementitious material properties, effect on freshly mixed concrete, types of concrete, advantages and disadvantages. So before going to that, what is the basic behind the material science is why the material science is very, very important nowadays. So material science is that science which involves the use of fundamentals and fundamental sciences which involve in the understanding of materials and its behavior. So generally, material science is the control of the properties for final use of applications. That is nothing but the cradle to grave scenario. That is nothing but the starting to end of an application. That is nothing but the construction to an demolition phase also you can call it as. So it should span the life of the material also for fabrication. Generally, you can start from the beginning and you can start to the end. Like you can take it from the construction or fabrication of the material to the demolition. So material research solve problems which generates new technologies also. So the basics of these materials is very, very important for the material science technology also. So the need for material science is very, very important as it requires the knowledge of science, fundamentals that must precede and for the development of new and better materials. It should, and the materials also require better ability to the engineering and architect to judge the appropriate of new and unconventional materials, whichever you are using, like polymers, or if you are adding any supplementary cementitious materials also, like that, it should compulsory be the knowledge should be there. And in the past, if you recollect it, the materials used in modern construction materials in civil engineering, generally what the materials will be used for the centuries, such as wood, timber, stone, rock, those are the first materials which has been used. So the materials used for human beings, such as the wood is the first main materials for the centuries back, the engineering the people are using. So later on, the material used since the last centuries have become like cement, concrete and steel. So for that purpose, the material science is also important. The need for material science is very, very important for developing new materials such as polymer and composites. So the composite consists of different phases of composite like FRP concrete, fiber reinforced, or CFRP, or the material combined conventional, whatever the material you are using for the present generation, it is very, very important. So the need for material science is very, very important on its performance also. So the performance can also depends on the superior properties. If you are using new materials, whether it has superior properties and what happens, what are the functions of those present in that, and how the performance requirements depends on the applications also. So generally, if you are using the new materials also, cost often limits the targeted performance of the materials also. So it is very, very important for the modern level. So modern society of the civil engineering, that we have to develop new and unconventional materials also. So before going to that, so generally we have different levels of information available based on the materials also. Generally there are there are three levels of information generally we have having. So first one is in a micro level. So that is also called as a molecular level or nano level. Second one is in a material structure or mesoscale also you can call, or meso level also you can call. And third one is an engineering level or macro scale also you can call it. So based on the levels of information, so first one is in a molecular level. So what the molecular level of information says that, so the material can be considered at the smallest scale in terms of atoms, molecules, or aggregates of the molecules also. Here you can take clusters of the molecules also, you can take it as a. So generally here in the molecular level, the range or the size of the particles generally varies from the 10 power minus 7 to 10 to the power of minus 3 mm. The size of the particles for the molecular level is generally taken in the range of 10 to the power of minus 7 to 10 to the power of minus 3 mm. So the examples which you require for the molecular level may be the crystal structures of metals, you can call it as an, or else hydrates in concrete. So in terms of concretes, if you want it, the hydrates, whatever the present in a concrete, those can be taken at the micro level. So like in cement hydration process, you get to know that what is the calcium silicate hydrates generated. The same the hydrates which is developed in a concrete can be taken place or shown, can be clearly shown in this micro level only. So microstructure level is very, very important because here the microstructure levels, as in the previous lectures or in the initial first lecture of the speakers had discussed, there are 7 techniques generally they have discussed. That is, first one is an XRD, X-ray diffraction. Second one is an scanning electron microscope. Third one is an EDS, and fourth one is an differential scanning calorimetry and thermogravimetric analysis, and new NMR spectroscopies, and Fourier transform infrared radiation, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. These are the different microscopic level where you can understand the size of the particle and how the hydrates presents in a concrete, where you are using the different supplementary cementitious materials also. Those can be understood clearly in this micro level only. So coming to the second phase as a material structure or mesoscale. So here the material can be considered as a composites of different phases which interact to give the total behavior of the material. So in the in the material structure, the range or the size of particles generally takes place from 10 to the power of minus 3 to 100 mm for the mesoscale. So here the examples, if you want to consider a single brick block, you can consider, or wood cell. In terms of our construction, a piece of concrete like aggregate, mortar, pieces of sand, like these pieces of materials you can take at the material structure level, and you can analyze it, how the particle shape, size, distribution, and what is the concentration of dosage. These material or properties and processing can be based on at this material structure level only. So different materials can be used here, and based on this the material structure can be observed here. I'm coming to a third phase as an engineering phase or macro level phase. So here the consideration of a total material normally taken to be homogeneous here. So here the materials which you are considering total material, which is an homogeneous and continuous material you can take. So here generally the range of the material will be from small to big, that is 1 micron to 1 meter range of particles you can take. Here for the selection of materials can be in different phases also, like a common metals like this, you can consider here it for the best criteria for the material is to satisfy the strength, the stiffness, durability, performance, and it should be water tightness, environmentally eco-friendly, and how the material you are considering for the engineering level should be speed of the construction also. These are the levels of information which is very, very useful for understanding from micro to macro level of information. From microstructural level to large scale of information, large structures, here you can understand here it. So coming to a supplementary cementitious material. So here these are the different supplementary cementitious material which you can, which you can see from left to right. So here, these are the different supplementary cementitious materials which contributes over here. So here from left to right, if you can see, this one is called an class C fly ash, and second one, white one, is called as an left to right am I talking here. This is the class C fly ash, and this is the metacoilin or calcined clay also you can call, and this one, third one, is called as an silica fume. This is an class F fly ash, and this is an slag cement, and this is an calcinated shale. So these are the different supplementary cementitious materials which can be used in a construction also. So coming to an next. Sorry. So coming to the different supplementary cementitious material. So slag cement used in concrete and mortars are according to ASTM standards. So generally in the previous lectures or in the previous speakers we have seen, all have given an Indian standard, what the standards they are using. So I thought of giving an ASTM standards. So for slag, we have different grades of slags also generally used in construction. So here slag means, don't be confused with the slag may be different. Here slag is nothing but the ground granulated blast furnace slag only. The slag has three different grades also, grade 80, grade 100, and grade 120. So based on an activity index, how the slag reacts with the material which we are used in construction, based on an activity index also, whether it is low activity, then the grade 80 is used. We have to be moderate activity, generally grade 100 can be used, and high activity, generally grade 120 is used. So coming to an fly ash and natural pozzolanous, so we have three ranges of fly ash, generally class C and class F. Class N generally rarely we used. So generally two types of fly ashes can be used, class C and class F. So this is according to ASTM C6118 standard. So and silica fume can also be used in a construction according to ASTM standard C1240, and specifications for blended cement supplementary cementitious material according to ASTM standards as ASTM C1697 it is. So supplementary cementitious materials properties, if you coming back to the properties, if you can see class F fly ash, class C fly ash, slag cement, silica fume, calcined clay, calcinated shale, and metacoil. So if you come back to the class F fly ash, so silicon, aluminium, iron oxide. So here you can variation the percentage. So here it is getting a greater than 70%, 50 plus 20 and 11. So greater than 70%, if these percentages addition of silica, alumina and iron oxide greater than 70%, generally class F fly ash it is called. And class C fly ash less than 70% also you can call, or less than 50% also you can call it. So slag cement, these are the different percentages, and silica fume, calcined clay, calcined shale, and metacoil. Generally, based on the here different properties they have given: silicon, alumina, iron oxide, calcium oxide, sulfur trioxide, nitrogen oxide, potassium oxide, and total loss on ignition, also fineness according to Blaine's, and relative density. So these are the different supplementary cementitious properties. And coming to an fly ash. So what is fly ash? It is nothing but the byproduct of the combustion of the pulverized coal. Generally, we are getting it from thermal power plants only. So power generating units or power generating stations, from there the fly ash can be produced. And generally it is a waste material. Generally the people used to dump in the river, dump in canals or like nearby water present, they'll dump it and they'll waste it. So they at the previous time they don't know what is the importance of the fly ash. So as the years progress, fly ash research have started, and they have come to know that fly ash can be used in a construction also. So based on the research they have did, so here they have divided the two types of fly ashes. Fly ash can be divided into two types. Generally, according to ASTM standard, we have class F and class C. So class F fly ash is a pozzolanic properties, and it is normally produced from the burning of anthracite or bituminous coal. Fly ash produced from the bituminous coal or anthracite burning is called as a class F fly ash, and class C fly ash is a fly ash which is produced from the burning of a lignite or subbituminous coal. So there are two types of fly ashes. So class F is a highly pozzolanic in nature, and it undergoes different polymerization process also. And here the percentages you can see, silicon, alumina, and iron oxide should be greater than or equal to 70%. Then that type of fly ash is called as a class F fly ash. And coming to an class C fly ash, so pozzolanic with some hydraulic behavior also here it required. So generally the percentages of a class C generally be taken as an silicon, alumina, and iron oxide greater than 50. So here you can take these two types of fly ash as we have discussed in a previous slide also. Coming to an fly ash particles, how the fly ash particles, generally we have seen the levels of information also based on a micro to macro level. So in micro level, how the fly ash particles appear. So generally you can see here solid spheres in the form of an spheres. Those fly ash particles will be the physical properties of fly ash will be the fly ash particles appear. This image is nothing but the scanning electron microscope. In scanning electron microscope, the image of the fly ash has shown the fly ash as a fine solid sphere. So this is the image of a fly ash. And coming to a slag cement. So slag cement is also known as ground granulated blast furnace slag, and it is the glassy materials formed from the molten slag produced in a blast furnace as a byproduct from the production of iron. Iron which is used in steel making. So generally this is the image for an slag cement. So coming to an slag cement, generally according to ASTM standard C989, generally we have three grades based on according to an low activity index, that is called grade 80, a moderate activity index, that is grade 100, and high activity index, the grade 120. Generally we have slag cement, ground granulated blast furnace slag is divided into three types also. So this is the image of a slag cement, ground granulated blast furnace slag. In an STEM images, if we consider, then the image is like this. So coming to an silica fume. So third supplementary cementitious material we are taking is an silica fume. So silica fume is ultra fine amorphous silica produced in an electric arc furnaces as an industrial byproduct in the production of silicon metals and ferrosilicon alloys. So this is the silica fume which is produced as an industrial byproduct in the production of silicon metals. This the image you can see. And coming to an silica fume. So according to ASTM standard C1240, silica fume used as a pozzolanic material in a concrete, and it may be supplied in one of three forms in accordance to ASTM C120 as produced, which is ultra fine powder, slurry, where the powder is suspended in water and densified, where the silica fume is allowed to flocculate and form a coarser particle up to 99% of silica content. So as produced, it is slurry and it is densified and it is up to 99% of silica content only. So coming to an next slide, this is the image of a silica fume taken in a scanning electron microscope. So silica fume is composed of very tiny spherical amorphous particles with an average diameter of 100 nanometers. You can take it. So 100 nanometers particles also you can form. Silica fume is very, very reactive compared to all other materials also you can take. So I'm coming to a natural pozzolanas, calcine shale, calcine clay, and volcanic ash according to ASTM standard C618. So we have seen class N and class F and class C fly ash. So coming to an class N, natural pozzolanas are produced from the natural mineral deposits. Some of these materials require heat treatment also, knowing as calcining, to make them pozzolanic, while others such as volcanic ash that can be used with only minimum processing. So natural pozzolanas are classified as class N, where minimum processing should be required. For a high processing, classifying class C, you have known that. So this ash and calcine clay and calcine shake can be easily available, and it requires very normal processing. It doesn't require very much treatment also. Like if you see the coal has to be burned in a thermal power plant, and after burning and whatever the byproduct it has got, that is called as the byproduct is called as a fly ash. So like that, it doesn't require, the natural pozzolanic doesn't require much processing, so it can be produced with minimum processing also, or else it can produce directly also. So coming to an next one, and natural pozzolana. These are the natural pozzolanas. So the left image is called the calcine clay. The left image is calcine shale, and the right image is shown is calcine clay. So these are the two images which I have shown. So here you can see very fine particles also in a right calcine clay. So coming to an metacoiling. So metacoiling is a calcine clay that is produced by low temperature calcination of kaolin clay. So by whatever the clay, different types of clay mineralogy you have studied in soil mechanics. So based on it, kaolin clay can be produced by low temperature. The metacoiling can be formed. So coming to an pozzolanic reaction, a pozzolana will react with calcium hydroxide to form a calcium silicates hydrates. So the calcium silicate hydrates from the pozzolana reaction is not the same as the Portland cement, that is calcium silicate hydrates, but does contribute to strength and helps lower the permeability of the hardened material also. So these are the pozzolanic reaction. It contributes to strength also, and it reduces the permeability also. So coming to a hydraulic reaction. So slag cement and some pozzolana with high calcium content. So generally slag cement is also referred to as an hydraulic material. So this means that it will hydrate when it mixed solely with water. When it mixed with water, but the process is typically slow over in hydraulic reaction. In slag cement, very slow process takes place. The hydration takes place is very slow in a slag cement. So whereas coming to some fly ashes and natural pozzolanas contain enough calcium to possess latent hydraulic properties. So if you take back to fly ash and other natural pozzolana, so what happens? It produces enough calcium to possess the hydraulic properties. But what happens to the hydraulic materials? These hydraulic materials benefit from the chemical activation from calcium hydroxide and alkali hydroxides also. So the reactivity depends on the fineness and composition of the slag cement also, and the temperature and alkali content of the Portland cement. The hydraulic reactions depends on these also. Based on a fineness also, the reactivity will be very, very high. If the fineness can be decreased, generally for cement, cement particles, you know that what is the size of cement particle? Generally less than 90 microns. So based on the size of the cement particles also, here these particles sizes can also be ultra fine also. You can take the particles less than 45 microns also here, or 75 microns also you can take the particles, and you can use in a concrete, and you can use this in a binder content. You can mix and you can prepare the required concrete whatever you want it. So these are the hydraulic reaction based on a fineness, composition of a slag, and temperature, alkali content of the Portland cement. So coming to the effects, what effects it's make on a freshly mixed concrete. So this is as per my observations I have taken. So fly ash for class F and class C, generally the water demand will be reduced. So water demand does not require for fly ash less. Similarly for slag cement also, it does not require much. And whereas coming to silica fume, the water demand increases. Calcined shale, it may or may not increase. It may increase or may lower also, decrease also. It depends on the calcined shale and calcined clay which you are using. And for metacoiling, generally the water demand is very high. You can take. And coming to an workability for glass fly ashes, it is the workability increases, and generally for slag cement also it increases. So coming to an silica fume, it decreases. And coming to calcined shale and calcined clay, it increases, and metacoiling it decreases. Similarly, segregation bleeding for fly ash decreases. Slag, it may or may not increase or decrease. So silica fume like this, these properties you can take, because I'm going much slower, I think so. So I'll just speed it up. So heat of hydration is also, so last coming to an heat of hydration, for fly ash, it is generally low. For class F, it is generally low. Why? Because the silicon and aluminum content present here is very high, greater than 70%. Whereas coming to class C, the silicon and aluminum will be less than or greater than 50%. So here the class C can be related to a cement also. You can take C. So because class C here, calcium content can carbon content can be present here. So slag cement, and these are the slag cement. It may decrease. So coming to an silica fume, it may, there will be no impact for such heat of hydration. So coming to calcined clay and calcined shale, it may decrease, and coming to metacoiling, there will be no effect on it. So coming to an workability, so generally workability increases for fly ash, silica fume and calcined shale and clay, decreases for silica fume and metacoil. So the use of fly ash, slag cement and calcined shale increases the workability. This means that a given slump concrete containing these materials is generally easier to place and consolidate and finish it. Mixtures that contain higher dosage of finer materials such as silica fume can increase the thickness of the concrete mixture. So this is about the workability. And coming to air content. So generally supplementary cementitious material generally require an increase in an amount of air entraining admixtures necessary to the increase in the fineness of cementitious material content. Based on the cementitious material content, this air content may increase. So generally it gives more supplementary cementitious materials keep more air entraining mixtures. So the effect of fly ash depends on carbon content. So generally carbon content, if the carbon C for class F, the carbon content will be very less, and class C, the carbon content will be more. So generally in construction we'll use class F type of fly ash only. And the fineness also, it is very, very important also. Based on a fineness, the properties will vary, like strength, durability, every properties will based on a fineness also, and alkali content, how much you are adding. So effect of slag content is also minimal, caused by fineness, and effect of silica fume is also very significant due to the fineness. So coming to an permeability and absorption, supplementary cementitious materials generally reduce permeability and absorption. So with appropriate design of concrete mixture, control of water to cementitious material, and adequate curing, fly ash, slag cement and natural pozzolaners generally reduce the permeability and absorption of concrete. So coming to an sulfate resistant. So more supplementary cementitious materials can improve the resistance of concrete to sulfate or seawater attack also. So generally for sulfate resistant, class F is better than the class C. So calcined clay better than type 5 Portland cement. So in Portland cement you have different types also based on type 1 general buildings or general construction residential buildings, you use type 1 cement, type 2, type 3 for a type 5, like this different types also you have for the cement also. So coming to a cementitious metal, we have seen Portland cement, blended cement according to this standard, fly ash, pozzolaners we have seen, and ground granite blast furnace like. So different supplementary cementitious materials you are using, these influence concrete performance, setting time, rate of strength development, porosity and permeability. These supplementary cementitious materials influence the concrete properties in terms of setting time also. Initially we have seen, so rate of strength development, porosity and permeability. So coming to an silica fume, fly ash and blast furnace slag all increase the durability by decreasing permeability and cracking based on the usage of the supplementary cementation. So generally, now coming to an types of concrete, generally we have different types of concretes. I'll not go much detail in all types. Some types I'll just explain in brief, whichever I feel important. So you have regular concrete, high strength concrete, stamped concrete, high performance concrete, consolidated concrete, vacuum concrete, shotcrete, pervious concrete, cellular concrete, cork cement composites, roller compacted concrete, glass concrete, asphalt concrete, rapid strength concrete, rubberized concrete, polymer concrete, geopolymer or green concrete, limecrete. Another is shotcrete, limecrete, shotcrete, refractory cement, concrete cloth, innovative mixture, gypsum concrete. These are the different types of concrete. I have some knowledge on this in detail, but not all types of concrete I can say that I'm master on that, I'm perfect on that. Whatever types of concrete I feel important, that I'm explaining to you. So high value concrete is the high value concrete is the concrete where concrete is very high. If you want to the concrete should be very high value. So what your requirement will be, cost of material should be very small, cost of placement should be significant, and cost of replacement should be very high, so that you will have the concrete in a high value. So main purpose as per the modern perspective, as per the people's requirements, the cost of material plays a vital role. So cost of material is very high, then you will make the concrete as a high volume concrete. Like best example nowadays they are using is a fly ash, or fly ash can be used in a concrete to replace in the present of a cement to make a concrete in a high value. So because the fly ash can be available free of cost, it doesn't require any much cost as a cement bags you are purchasing for the. So coming to a high value concrete, generally it is associated with high performance. It can be called as a high performance concrete also. For high performance concrete, what you require, it should be high early strength concrete, and high strength concrete, high early and high strength concrete. So in the early stages only you should get the strength. Whatever the 28 days strength you are getting, you have to wait for the cement. If you are getting the strength at 7 days, then you can use the high high value concrete, and you can call high early strength concrete also. Then coming to an high strength concrete, and it should be highly durability also. It should resist to durability also, like coming to sulfate, acid attack also, or whatever the attack you take, it should be high durability. And self-consolidated concrete also, it should consolidate by itself also. So reactive powder concrete also. So this should be there. And coming to an materials used in a high performance concrete, generally Portland cement, blended cement. In terms of blended cement, you can use fly ash, slag, silica fume, calcined clay, or metacoiling, or calcined shea, based on the availability or based on the cost. Also you can decide whether what the materials can be used. And super plasticizer, if you wanted to use, you can use. For some like silica fume, metacoiling, the workability will not be easy. For that they can add also super plasticizer also. High range water reducers also can be used as a super plasticizer for reduce of water cement ratios also. So if these water cement ratios plays a vital role in the present. So if the water cement ratio is very less, then it will produce a high performance concrete also. And coming to hydration control admixtures, it control settings also. Coming to a particle size scale related to concrete. So based on a particle size, so generally we have discussed the levels of information taking place from the micro to macro level. Based on a level of information in terms of nanometers he has given, and specific surface areas also he has given. Based on the specific surface area in terms of meter square per kg. So coarse aggregate. So coarse aggregate particles, you know that. So coarse aggregate coming, Seema, from here, coarse aggregate will have larger particles. And coming to natural sand, aggregates fine, Portland cement, fly ash, and finally finely ground mineral additives, metacoiling, silica fume, and precipitated silica and nanosilica. So generally in conventional concrete, you'll use up to here: Portland cement, aggregate fine, natural sand, and coarse aggregate. So coming to high strength, high performance concrete, you'll use this also: silica fume, metacoiling, and finely ground mineral admixtures, fly ash also you can use. Coming to nano engineering concrete, you will use nanosilica, precipitated silica, which have ultra to ultra fine particles you can use also. So the particles less than 45 microns can be used in construction also, which gives nano engineering concrete also. Based on the particle size related to that also, you can define nano engineering concrete, high performance concrete, and conventional concrete also. So coming to the characteristics of high performance concrete. So high performance concrete, what the high performance concrete should be: it should give high early strength, and it should give high strength, high modulus of elasticity also, high abrasion resistance, high durability, and long life in a severe environments. And low permeability and diffusion and resistance to chemical attack also it should give to the high performance concrete also. Coming to the characteristic, it should resist to frost and very frost and glacial conditions also, and the damage should be very less. So it should be resistant to that cold weather conditions also. Whatever the high performance concrete, if you are using, if the material supplement is cementitious material which you are adding on the high performance concrete, it should be resist to the frost and cold weather conditions also, and it should resist to toughness and impact resistant. A sudden blasting can be occurred, so for blasting also it should be resist to the high performance concrete. And there will be a volume stability should be there, so it shouldn't be destabilize the volume also. So density, so here it plays a very important. So generally the density can be displaced. So volume stability is also very important, and easy of placement. Generally it is easily placed. So generally in Hyderabad you can see the construction of a metro. You can see pre-fabricated, or so they are preparing initially and they are directly placing. So easy of placement also you should be there. And compaction without segregation. There should not be any segregation and bleeding. In the previous speaker you have seen what is segregation and bleeding. I will not go much in that. So compaction without segregation should be there. Inhibition of bacterial and mold growth. There should not be in concrete, there should not be any growth of bacteria, fungus like that. So this is about the characteristics. And materials used in a high performance concrete: retarders to control the setting, accelerated to accelerate the setting, corrosion inhibitors to control the steel corrosion, because in construction if the steel can be corroded, so what happens, the structure can be demolished. So compulsory corrosion inhibitors can be used to control the steel corrosion which is happening inside the concrete, because if you place the steel reinforcement in that, so based on the corrosion, if you are not providing any corrosion inhibitor at certain age of time or certain period of time, what happens, the steel corrosion takes place. Then what happens, at a certain period of time the total structure can be demolished. So coming to a water reducer, it should reduce the cement and water contents also. The primary contribution and desired property is that we have to reduce cement and water content also, and shrinkage reducers to reduce the shrinkage occurring in a structure, and ASR inhibitor, nothing but alkali silica activity to control the inhibitors, and optimally graded aggregates. Compulsory the whatever the aggregates you are using, it should be of proper and it should be of a regular size. That will make you improve the workability and reduce the paste. And polymer or can be used for durability purposes also. And coming to an next, selected properties of high performance concrete. So high performance concrete, generally for high performance concrete you require what? High strength. So property should be high strength. Generally the strength according to ASTM standards is generally it has to be 70 to 140 megapascal of strength should be required for the high performance concrete. And HE is nothing but high early compressive strength. Generally high performance concrete, what you'll be expecting 28 days strength. If you are using supplemental cementitious materials, you require the strength at early ages only. So for high early compressive strength also, you require the strength at early stages only. So here according to ASTM standard and test method, he has given 20 to 30 megapascal can be we have to achieve at 3 to 12 hours or 1 to 3 days of the casting. And high early flexure strength can be, we have to get at 1 to 3 days to be 2 to 4 megapascal also. And abrasion resistant generally be 0.1 mm depth of wear, and it should be very less abrasion resistant. The wear and tear of an aggregates or in a construction, if the structure is breaking, the abrasion resistance should be very less. Generally, it should be 0 to 1 mm depth of the wear. It should not, the aggregate shouldn't crash by itself. That is what the test of aggregates we have seen in the previous speakers lectures also. And coming to low permeability, and the criteria may be specified as 500 to 2000 coulomb, and chloride penetration, it should be very, very less of 0.07% of chloride at 6 months. So coming to low absorption and high modulus of elasticity, it should be ranging from 2% to 5%, and it should be more, high modulus should be more than 40 gigapascal. And coming to high early strength, according to specification, and in the previous lecture, in the previous slide, we have seen high early strength concrete, and her high early strength concrete may be achieved by high cement content. So here he has given, so high early strength can be high early strength concrete can be achieved by one or more combinations of the following, depending on the age at which the specified strength may be achieved, and on job conditions also, if you are going back. So based on that, it should be achieved. Higher curing temperature, or high freshly mixed concrete properties, or lower water. So we have seen in the previous slide, water to cementitious materials also plays a vital role. So based on that, if here we have to remove the low water cementing materials by using high HRWR super plasticizer or high rainwater reducing plasticizers also, or based on that, you can reduce the water content also. And coming to high early strength concrete, it may be achieved, it may be obtained by one or more combinations depending on the age and raw combination. Suppose it may be achieved by adding chemical admixtures. Some require chemical admixtures such as silica fume or other cementitious material. It may be steam or autoclave. So some require steam cured or oven cured for getting the high early strength. So generally, if you are coming back to a geopolymer concrete, you have seen that geopolymer concrete can be very strong at early stages when it is oven cured. Whatever the 28 days normal strength of a concrete cannot produce, the same strength can be produced by the geopolymer when it is steam cured or oven cured condition, or autoclave curing also you can do. Insulation or retain heat of hydration, special rapid hardening cement. Based on your specified strength and job conditions, you may take one or more combinations and you can get it high early strength concrete also. See, so here high early strength concrete, 90% of the ready mix concrete will have 20 to 40 megapascal, at most 30 to 35 megapascal. So this image shows the explosive nature of high strength concrete upon failure when tested in a compression. So generally 28 days compressive strength can be greater than or equal to 970 megapascal, or as you can call 10,000 psi also. So coming to high strength concrete admixtures also you can use. So recent studies, the water to cementitious material can be greater than or equal to 0.3 or less than or equal to 0.25, where no air is needed also. Like this you can take. And coming to high strength concrete, it should be properly placed, consolidated, and curing should be required so that the high strength concrete. And coming to our next high durability concrete, generally in the last centuries, what we have seen in 1970s and 1980s, they generally focus on high strength, high performance concrete. But today, what we are focusing on severe environmental condition resulting in a structure with long life. So we require nowadays, it should be high durability, high performance concrete also. Coming to high strength or high performance concrete, it is the concrete which satisfies the in terms of all critical aspects of the fabrication and utilization from cradle to grave scenario, like that we have seen in the initial slides, at the lowest nominal possible cost. There is no unique high performance concrete. The mix design depends on the application. Whatever the mix design you design, based on that only the high strength or high performance will be given. So it generally refers to the type of concrete that offers more than just high strength. So generally high performance implies high compressive strength and high durability today. So generally the high performance concrete, if you see, so slender elements for long column and short columns also, you can use high strength or high performance. What happens for high rise building if you are using? there will be increased stiffness, aesthetic to more appealing also. Coming to bridge piers and decks, it should be more durable and more elegant way. So, and coming to marine structure, it should have higher durability and lower weight. So in marine structures, the compulsory high performance concrete, whatever that you are preparing based on the SCM materials, so it should be of higher durability and lower weight also. So coming to high durability, so these are the durability issues which can be addressed. So we have seen in a previous abrasion resistant, blast resistant, permeability, carbonation, freezing and thawing condition at extreme cold weather condition also. Whatever the concrete, whatever the material you are using, it should be resist to freezing and thawing condition also. And it should be resistive to the chemical attack and alkali reactivity, silica reactivity and corrosion rates of the rebars also. And coming to self-consolidating concrete, so generally it is known as self-compacting concrete. It was developed in the 1980s in Japan. So what it has said, increased amount of fine material, that is fly ash or limestone filler. So and here we can use high range water reducing plasticizers also. Here what happens, total contents of the fine particles finer than 60 micron sieve has to be high. Usually it is 520 to 560 kg per meter cube, and here high range water reducers based on a polycarboxylate ethers typically used to plasticize the mix. And here very sensitive to flocculation in water content, and therefore stabilizers such as polysaccharides are used over here. So these are about the self consolidating concrete. And coming to next is geopolymer concrete. Generally the geopolymer was the first term used by the Joseph De Villeroy in late 1970, and where it has nowadays it is a family of amorphous alkali or alkali activated silica. So aluminates binders in the form of M2O and MNA. Al2O3 and NSiO2. So generally we have seen alumina, silica and iron oxide ratio, sodium or alumina. So the ratio should be greater than or equal to the percentage of alumina, silica and iron oxide greater than or equal to 70%. It is called class F, and less than, so generally it is called less than 70%, it is called class C fly ash. So here, here geopolymer concrete takes place starting from the reactive precursors such as metacoiling, initially in the late 1970s, before 1970s. So kaolinitic clay, we have seen that kaolinitic clay can be formed at a low temperatures, low heat. So it can be formed easily and easily. We can get easily. So we have seen generally class N type also. So where natural or artificial aluminosilicates will be mixed and we can form. So where in contact with the high range pH alkaline solution, aluminosilicate reactive materials release free silicon tetroxide and aluminum tetroxide unit, which afterward condensate to form a rigid network. So coming to a geopolymer mechanism, generally it involves 6 steps from alkynation, depolymerization of silicate, gel formation, polycondensation, reticulation and geopolymer solidification. These are the 6 steps which involves in a polymerization of a geopolymer for getting a perfect strength. So at last, so I'll not go much in detail. So alumina silicate from the source material which you have taken and which you have dissolution to form an aluminate and silicate. Then afterwards, at concern equilibrium condition, you will get this and gelation takes place, reorganization of molecular takes place. Then at last, you will get polymerization of hardening process takes place. And coming to this is the experiment we have did in our laboratory. So initially the preparation of alkaline solution, so addition of alkaline liquid to the mortars or concrete, whatever if you want to prepare, and mixing of alkaline liquid to mortars or the concrete, whichever you want to prepare, and it should be properly mixed with the help of an Harbart mortar. For concrete generally use is Harbart mortar, or here I have used a blender. So you can use the blender also for proper mixing of any materials and proper polymerization process takes place. So this is the mixing, and then afterwards blocks formation, blocks prepared. Then you can test. Coming to geopolymer concrete is the one where the binder is made up of fine aluminosilicate activated by alkalis to give polysilates. So silates stand for silico oxo aluminate. So in the form of SiA4 plus or Al3 plus in coordination with oxygen. So there are large range of natural materials such as zeolite, lateritic rock or soils, clay, mica, feldspar and waste products such as fly ash and slag that can be used in the production of geopolymer also. So potential applications, coming to a geopolymer concrete, the main applications used in a building and paver block, heat and chemical resistant composite and hazardous waste encapsulations also. The geopolymer concrete can be used there. So coming to a recycle aggregate, it generally refers to the aggregate. The aggregates derived from the construction C&D waste. So construction and demolition waste, whatever nowadays there is lot of construction and demolition waste taking place. So from there the aggregates were taken and so used in a construction. The majority of such concrete used in road, subbase, construction, engineering fields and landfills. So these recycled aggregates are used over there, and there is a very good potential for the use in building blocks and paver blocks or slabs also, the recycled aggregate. So generally, aggregates can be derived from other industrial wastes as water glass, granulated or crumb rubber, or incinerated bottom ash also. So water glass can be used as a fine aggregate under some circumstances. So it has to be used to get a glittery surface in precast concrete and can be susceptible to alkali silica reactivity also. And coming to ground granulated or crumb rubber, it can be used in low strength flowable concrete and improves flexibility and thermal insulating properties also. So coming to incinerated bottom ash, it is the waste produced from the burning of municipal waste has been used in a low strength non-structural concrete also. And coming to lightweight concrete, the maximum density of the lightweight concrete should be less than 1900 kg per meter cube, and it is achieved by using low density aggregates also. So like a lightweight concrete, geopolymer, foam concrete you have seen like that. So intermediate density concrete, it can vary from 1900 to 2200 kg per meter cube, and low density aggregate should be natural or expanded by heating of volcanic origins such as shale, clay or slate, process such as sintered and bonded fly ash. And coming to ultra lightweight concrete, the ultra lightweight concrete should be concrete with densities of less than 1100 kg per meter cube and compressive strength of less than about 7 megapascal. So generally the concrete with expanded or other very low concrete, low density aggregate such as expanded polystyrene, perlite, blast furnace slag or vermiculite and rubber particles. So or coming to a cellular or aerated concrete, it is made up with very large diameter of 0.1 to 1 mm, voids incorporating a foam, like foam concrete you have seen in the cement paste or mortar, or generating a foam by chemical reaction by using fine alumina powder. So used for these ultra lightweight concrete can be used for insulating fill, conduit lining and firewalls and non-structural panels. Here the ultra lightweight concrete can be used. And coming to roller compacted concrete, it has the same components as conventional concrete also, but the mix is stiffer and drier. So it should be compacted with vibratory rollers and is normally made without any joint. So paver machines use similar concrete without the need for higher vibrator. So the major application of roller compacted concrete can be used in dams and pavements. Up to 2013, 5 dams in India have constructed using this roller compacted concrete. So coming to auto aerated concrete, it is a lightweight concrete formed by chemical reaction between the fine calcareous and silicaceous material. So the calcareous material may be lime or cement, and silicaceous material either it may be fly ash or ground granulated blast furnace slag or ground sand also you can take. So it should be cellular structure and it should be obtained by producing hydrogen bubbles with aluminum powder, by adding a foam or by incorporating air wall. The reaction needs very high pressure or steam curing for autoclaved aerated concrete. So the density of autoclaved aerated concrete can be varied from 200 to 1000 kg per meter cube. And the applications for the autoclaved aerated concrete include blocks and precast structural elements for building construction. So coming to heat resistance and refractory concrete. So heat resistant concrete can be exposed to temperature up to 1000 degrees centigrade also, and refractory concrete can be up to 1900 degrees centigrade also. So up to that temperatures, the concrete should be resistant. These concretes are made with high alumina content, which contains about 40% of alumina, 40% of lime, and the main cementitious components of calcium aluminate and in the form and C12 and A17, whose hydration results in calcium aluminate hydrates. These aggregate that can resist the high temperatures such as slag needs to be used. And coming to underwater concrete. Concrete to be placed underwater must be cohesive to minimize cement washout. So generally we see construction under water. So what happen? Whatever the outer paste, whatever the finishing work you done, so whatever it can be washed out. So here ultra underwater concrete. So it must be cohesive to minimize cement washout and flowing to fill the spaces and bond whatever present in a concrete. It should fill the spaces which are present, and it should be self-compacting. The vibration is not practical generally. So generally a higher fine contents and viscosity modifying admixture is used in underwater concrete. The concrete should be protected such that the fines are not washed away. This can be achieved by springs and pumps also. So coming to polymer modified concrete. So here copolymers such as styrene butadiene and other polymers are combined with Portland cement and water to form the binder in polymer modified concrete. So here the cement hydration occurs first. Initially in polymer modified concrete, so cement hydration occurs first. So after the mixture sets and as the water is consumed by hydration, the polymer particles in the void co-slip into the film to coat the aggregate particles in the walls of intestinal wall. These the improvements obtained due to the polymer includes low permeability and higher bond and tensile strength also. Coming to the applications of this polymer modified concrete is it is generally used in floor spreaders, repair works and bridge decks and pavement overlays only. In India, polymer modified concrete is used extensively in waterproofing and repair and strengthening purposes. These polymer PMC can be used in generally nowadays waterproofing technologies have placed in modified role. So how the waterproofing technology based on polymers which you are using and flooring applications are generally common over here. So coming to concrete testing, generally you know that testing can be done on the compression testing and same cylinders which if you are testing in a concrete cylinder also how the cylinder feels I have shown, and concrete recycling. Generally, our motto is increasing common methods of disposition of concrete structure. Recycling is increasing due to the improved environmental awareness and government laws which suggest to use this and environmental economic benefits also. Generally, we require nowadays we require generally low cost. Construction of cost should be very low so that the high volume concrete can be prepared, and recycling concrete provides environmental benefits and conserving landfill spaces also. For dumping the waste material byproduct, a large amount of space can be used to rectify or to make the use of those material or to make the land fertile or your wastage. So the whatever the waste fill material, whatever the waste material which we are dumping on a land for wastage, so that materials all can be used in a concrete so that it can be recycled and it can make different types of concrete as per your requirement on site or on field. So these are the requirements. So I thank the Sri Chaitanya College of Engineering for providing me the opportunity to deliver a lecture on this. So I feel very thankful. And any queries?
Yes, thank you, Vinay sir. Thank you for a very long and informative session on SEMs.